Welcome to the Author Blurb podcast. I'm your host, Eric Maynard. So, on this episode, I have a returning guest, Amber Boudreau, and we had a great conversation about her third book, which is the second in a series. So, with that being said, you should listen to what her and I discuss because, well, why wouldn't you? Secondly, go to authorblurb.com where you can find all the show notes, all the podcast information, basically find everything you want to find about either Amber, other guests that we've had, other guests that might be coming up, and articles that some of these guests, some of these authors have written for your enjoyment. So I try to give you what I can. I hope you do enjoy it. Other than that, that's about as far as I can go. And also, go check out the links for Amber to get more of her information on the books that she's written, the things that she's trying to entertain you with, because from what I'm gathering, the stories sound interesting. They sound like something that would keep you on your toes. So that's why I had her on again, is because her stories sound like they're stories that would keep you interested. So, as always, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate a lot of things, especially you sharing and telling people about the show, which is how I grow. And the more I grow, the more authors want to be on, and the more authors that want to be on, the more books you can find that you will want to read. So, let's try to balance it out. Let's try to make sure that we all have what we want. I have guests to talk to. You find books that you want to read. And you can also read and find stuff on authorblurb.com because that's where you go. Where at authorblurb.com you can find the podcast, find different places that the show is being able to either be viewed if you're only listening, or where you can also find all the places that you can listen to it on different podcasting streaming services. In theory, you should be able to listen to it on every one of them. I think I have most of all of them covered as far as I'm aware. So, with that being said, I'm going to cut it to the end of this. You don't really want to listen to me talk all too much. I think you're here more to listen to Amber, and that's what I'm going to switch over to. So thank you again. Enjoy and share, review, tell people. Send me a message telling me what you think. I love to hear from you, and I look forward to it. So thank you. Bye. So I am here with Amber Boudreau, and we're here discussing her 3 books. Now, if you haven't listened to all the episodes, you might want to go back to episode 13, where Amber and I discussed her first 2 books, The Second Nature and The Dragoneer. Now, today, Amber is going to give us a quick overview of Second Nature and The Dragoneer, and then we're going to discuss her new book that's out, that just came out October 3rd. October 3rd, correct?
Yes, October 3rd. Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's do this. So for the people that haven't listened to all my episodes as they should have, let's have you give a quick introduction of yourself so people can get to know you, and then we'll go into your books.
Great, Eric. So my name is Amber Boudreau, and I write youth and adult fantasy. And as you mentioned, we can start with Second Nature. It wasn't my first book, but it was the second. And it is, if you like werewolves and shifters, that is what Second Nature is about. We follow Mavis as she tries to discover who she is and what she is. So that's Second Nature. And then my first book is The Dragoneer, and that came out in September of 2020. And it is I've lately started to think of it as more of a how to train your Dragoneer type book, except it's still told from a 15-year-old Moira's point of view, and how she was bitten by a dragon and how she came to have these magical powers, and how she has to squire the dragon and help him find a way home. So
now, just as one thing that I remember from our last conversation, when you say the dragon bit her, It was no bigger than a salamander when it bit her, but ended up growing to a full size. So I do remember that because I remember when you first told me, I'm sitting there going, well, most dragons are pretty darn large.
Right, exactly. Good memory. Yeah, so in the book, he bites her right after he's hatched, so he's not very big at all. I actually maybe even have him a little bigger than a salamander, maybe the size of a small cat. When he bites her, when he catches up with her again, he's grown to maybe the size of a small dog. But then he asks her to find him fire rocks, and she does. And of course, he eats those, and he gets quite a bit bigger from there. So yeah.
I understand. So
Yeah.
let's go a quick review over Dragoneer just so people can get it. So then we can go much easier into your series, to your second book. And by the way, what is the name of your second book?
The second book is called The Dragoneer and The Pretender.
The Pretender. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to be interested in finding out more about that. So in the Dragoneer, so it's Moira, I am horrible with names.
It's okay. It's a tough one. Moira, yeah.
Yes, Moira, I can't get it right. I don't know why. My tongue is not completely there today yet, but
It is early.
Your main character starts off, if I remember correctly, in being homeschooled because of some trauma she dealt with, and she's trying to integrate herself back into public school when all this is starting out, correct?
Right. She had to leave school for a time because she did have she had some anxiety issues stemming from the sudden loss of her father. It wasn't a traumatic accident or anything like that. Her father had an undiagnosed heart condition, and one day he just succumbed to it unexpectedly. So, but perhaps just because of the manner in which he passed, she has some she starts to have some anxiety and panic attacks associated with that. And so she leaves school for a while. It's public school. She's homeschooled for a bit, but it's by the time she gets to high school, she's ready to start going back to school. So she's sort of had a freshman year at the high school, and she's now starting her sophomore year, and she's connected with a few friends, but making those reconnections has been difficult. So she's more into her schoolwork and focusing on that. So it's simple. It's easy for her to be working on a project and being out in the woods and trying to get that finished and out of the way, trying to be ahead of schedule, as it were. But that's where she runs into. That's where she ends up meeting this dragon, this creature that she discovers in a cave. So, yeah.
All right, and as she's doing it, she also starts developing magic from the dragon bite. So it's not the dragon just has a habit of biting her. It did have a reason to pass on magic to her, if that was correct.
Right. In this world, dragons are just innately magical beings. So when he bit her, he sort of imbued her with these abilities that she doesn't recognize that she has right away, but through her reconnecting with a mentor figure, she's able to sort of start to learn and understand what she's capable of. So yeah.
Okay, and through the first one, the Dragoneer,
Sure.
What does she really? Refresh my memory if you would, because it has been a little bit since we spoke. So, what is she trying to fight against? What is the big challenge that she's faced in this book? Is there she's just trying to come to terms with who she is, or is there an external force that she has to battle? What are we looking at here?
You're right. There's a bit of that. There's a bit of both. So yes, internally she's struggling with this panic or with this anxiety of having run across an honest-to-God fantastical creature that needs her help. That shouldn't exist in this world, but does. And not only does he exist, he talks and he asks her for help. So she's got to deal with that. And then externally, there are trolls that have been sent to basically get rid of Zephyr or kill the dragon. His name is Zephyr. She names him. He asks her for a name, and she says, "How about Zephyr?" So yes, Zephyr is the name of the dragon. And so now that she's got this, she has this external threat of keeping Zephyr safe from from trolls. And on top of that, there's a mysterious figure who's appeared in the library who goes by the name of the librarian. I know. So she has this librarian who tells her that if she doesn't keep the dragon safe, then it's not just going to be his life on the line, but hers as well. So she is now linked to this dragon. So she knows she has to help him. And what she thinks that means is that she has to help him find a way home. She has to help him get back to where he came from.
All right. So that sounds good. So
yeah.
Now we're going into the Dragoneer and the Pretender.
Right. The Dragoneer and the Pretender.
Where do we start off with the Dragoneer and the Pretender?
Right. So for me as a writer, it sort of just made sense to just pick it right back up where we left off at the very end of the Dragoneer. So the Dragoneer and the Pretender starts pretty much right where the Dragoneer ended. So which is with Moira visiting her mentor in the hospital, where actually he's just woken up from a coma, and she's there with him when he has an unexpected warning, and he knows that something is occurring and that she needs to go. And so Moira, running out of the hospital, trying to find her friend, who she knows this a character, not the captain of the trolls from the last book. There are the trolls that are trying to kill Zephyr, and then there's the captain of the trolls who's giving them their orders. So she knows she's got to protect not only Zephyr from them, but also her friend, Ansel, who is in the first book. She has to protect him from not only the trolls, but the captain of the trolls, who seems to be under the misconception that Ansel is the Dragoneer when he is not. Moira is the Dragoneer. So due to his mistake, he actually kidnaps the wrong people. He not only kidnaps Ansel, he also kidnaps his twin brother, Aaron. So he's doubly mistaken. He's confused by he's operating under some misconceptions, which unfortunately leads to Moira and Zephyr's friends being kidnapped. So once they're taken, Moira and Zephyr have to get them back.
Okay, so now at the beginning of the Dragoneer, Moira is 15 years old.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So how old is she in the second book? Is she still 15, or
she's still 15? Yeah, she's because of the way it picks up right where it left off. She's still 15. Yep.
All right. So the first book all starts and takes place within a year span, basically.
Not even a year. It's a very accelerated span of time.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, the first book probably takes place over a span of a couple weeks, 3 at the most. Maybe a little longer if we go back to the very initial bite when Zephyr bites her. So yeah, this book too also takes place over just a very condensed amount of time, a couple of weeks. But it is what you would call a portal fantasy. So basically, since they've kidnapped her friends, Moira and Zephyr have to travel to his world of origin, where Zephyr came from, to get them back.
All right, so when you say portal fantasy, because there's a ton of categories out there nowadays on all these books. So
right.
Portal fantasy is basically where you have to travel through a portal to get somewhere to be able to take action, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there any more to it, or is that just the gist of it there? So again, I'm not familiar with portal fantasy myself.
I think a portal fantasy is, I mean, I don't know if it's whether it's a portal per se, or a door that they have to walk through, or some sort of time slipstream, something.
Right.
But yes, they have to go somewhere else. They have to go to a different world, and that's what they do in this book. Yes.
Okay, and what world do they end up going to? I mean, is it in the same dimension? Is it far, far off in the galaxy? Is it a, I don't know. I mean, what could it possibly be?
It could possibly be an alternate universe, maybe where dinosaurs never went extinct, or it could be just an alternate reality. Yeah.
No, I mean with the Dragoneer,
Oh.
where did she go through? So I understand. I think I understand the portal concept now.
Gotcha.
But with her, when she went through the portal or through the gateway, wherever she went through, did she go to another dimension, another timeline? Where did she end up going?
She ends up in a world not unlike the one that she left, only that this is one where dragons exist, and they work alongside man. So dragon and man have come to work together. She actually lands in a cultivated field that they make reference to the wyverns or the dragons working. She goes into a city where there are extra large sidewalks, because there are dragons walking down the side of it. They're also hitched to wagons. They're pulling goods and pulling goods through the town. So in the city that they end up in, which is called Farago, they run across a constable who is also a dragon. So.
All right. So are all the dragons in the story intelligent, or is there different types and kinds of dragons?
All of the dragons that we run into are fairly, yes, intelligent. The problem is, actually, that comes up later in the book, is that dragons are considered fairly noble creatures. So they're all the dragons that we run into are intelligent and contribute to society in some way. So yes.
Okay. So now with that, what does the main character, because there obviously is a pretender, another character, is the pretender the villain, or is the pretender somebody that's trying to help her?
The pretender is more of a puppet, a political puppet. That's so Moira really falls into it. She's being hunted by this magician who seems to have realized his mistake after having kidnapped Ansel and Aaron. So seems to have the correct intel now, and is seeking her and Zephyr. So she has that to deal with. She has more trolls. Pardon me. There are more trolls to deal with. There is also an imp army that is being bred by this pretender to the throne. And the throne is he's a pretender to the throne of another city that's Castle Turn, which exists a fair bit of distance from where Moira lands in this new world. So of course, it's now we're on the road. So we have a girl and her dragon and traveling. to where she thinks her friends are so that she can get them back. So along the way, she's going to run into goblins. She's going to learn about the imps. She has those things to face off against. And she has this magician who is ultimately the bad guy, who has installed the son of the regent on the throne, and
Nice.
who is the pretender. So she has him to go up against as well.
All right. So now sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I do apologize, but I do have a question that's running through my head right now.
Uh-oh.
So with the second one, the Dragoneer and the Pretender,
Mhm.
it has a world full of dragons and people working with dragons.
Mhm.
What is it that the main character Mora and Zephyr makes them special or different
Um,
from all the people in this realm that they're in?
so Moira is still a dragon bit Dragoneer, which makes her a good deal different than the dragons and Dragoneers that work alongside each other there. Um, so that's still something that doesn't happen very frequently. In fact, it's happened less and less frequently. So she's this dragon bit Dragoneer, and that's not even common there.
Okay, so with that makes it a whole nother realm of abilities that she has over others.
Yes.
Is there a reason, or is it just it doesn't happen because people aren't around dragons when they hatch? Or I'm just curious on where that starts out from.
You've hit upon the reason why is that they when they hatch and they're not around their own kind, they sort of have an instinct that takes over, and they're driven to sort of bite a human. So that's what happened. So yeah, exactly. So we're in the world they travel to. There are clutches of eggs and things, and when dragons hatch, they're around other dragons. But what happened in Moira's case or Zephyr's case is that when he hatched, there was no one else. There was no one else around.
Okay,
Mhm.
well that makes sense then.
Yeah.
So do you talk about how Zephyr ended up into the same world as Mora if it's a different realm?
Uh, yeah. Thanks. We're getting to that. That's going to come
Oh,
in the third book. I appreciate
okay.
that. So I have thought about that. That is a story we're going to have to save for the third book. So yeah,
Understandable. Well, at least we know there's a third book coming.
I'm working on it right now.
Well, that's very good to hear.
Yeah.
So, what actually made you decide to go from the first book into the second book? Because other than the publisher saying, we want another book, was there something else? Because you could have said, no, I don't feel I want to continue on this way. What
Right.
was it that made you say, I want to keep going with the Dragoneer?
Right. I think I just had more story to tell. With the way it ended, I was like, I could keep going. This could happen. And I don't. That's funny that you think your publisher is like, hey, we want a sequel. I don't think anybody ever has said that. I was just like, guess what? We're getting a sequel. So surprise. Um, but when I did say I had the sequel and I did send it to my publisher, I think they were excited. And Dragon Street Press has been awesome with working with me on the sequel. They've been very helpful, and we've done things a different way than I have with other publishers. So it's been fun, and it's been a great experience to work with them on it. They have a cover for the second one, which I have not had time to post, but I will. I'm happy to share this with you, hopefully, on your screen for
Oh,
this.
yeah.
The cover for the Dragoneer and the Pretender coming October 3rd. I'm very excited. It's a great cover. I'm looking forward to everybody having a chance to read it. There, I thought there was more story to tell, so I was like, all right, let's try to tell it. And then, even now with the third one, I was like, there's more. So it's very interesting to sort of pick it up with the sequel and move forward and introduce new characters and build the world where they're going, and to see how their relationships shift and change over time. So it's been an interesting endeavor.
All right. So, and with that, I think last time we talked, you described yourself as a pantser, which means everything you write on the go, and then you go back and just edit the living daylights out of it. So,
I like to think I like to think I actually draw like from both worlds of pantsing or
outlines.
plotters, right? Yeah,
Right.
I think I read somewhere it's like if you want to write fast and well, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to write fast and I want to write well. I was like, well, maybe you should have an outline. So, I not that I'm writing from an outline, but I think in my head I have an outline that I'm working from. And when something happens, I'm more than happy to ditch that outline and substitute a new one and to work
Right.
from that one instead. So I think it's yeah, I'm a little bit of both. Because I think I know where I know where things are going, and it's always a surprise sometimes. So
Right. And that's the one thing I find with my writing is it's always fun to kind of say, "Oh, I didn't realize that was happening," or "I didn't realize this or that." It's always
right,
an interesting. I said I'm the pantser type person myself.
sure,
It's also the reason I have a stack of longer than my arm of stories I've started and just kind of pushed aside.
right,
So
right. I have
I
a writer friend in my writing group who is like, I've decided to start with theme. She's like, she's going to get the theme down first before she starts writing this story. I was like, okay. I was like, let me know how that goes. So
yeah,
yeah,
that'd be interesting. So
it is. I mean, I think it's always something good to have in the back of your mind, but
right.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you can take it and uh, shake it and invert it and make it do what you want it to do, good, more power to you.
And that's the one great thing about having so many different writing styles and writers is you do end up with so many different types of stories. I mean,
Right.
just from the authors I've spoken with on this episode on not this episode, I'm sorry, from this
No worries.
from this show alone, the way people come up with stories, the things that they bring to their stories are things that one I would never have thought about. Their life experience brings a whole lot different telling of they could have a similar story of Romeo and Juliet and end up having each author would have a different way of telling it.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
so what is it in your life that brought or I guess the better question is what in your life do you put into the story that brings you connected to the stories of the Dragoneers?
Hmm. Yeah. I think that idea of I think doesn't everybody always want their own dragon? I mean,
Well, it
uh
would be fun. I mean, I remember the never ending story with
oh, Falcor.
yes. I mean, ever since a kid, I always wish I had a little dragon to ride around in. It would make
Yeah.
traffic a heck of a lot better.
Right. Right. I think right up there with like Treehouse
Hmm.
was Dragon. So I think those two things are really what I'm shooting for. Um, so no, I think I like the idea of you know, uh, there's a character who is a little reserved and he's been through this trauma, so she has experience dealing with things that would otherwise make people panic or fly off the handle or dissolve into a puddle. uh, and she knows what that's like. So she has that experience. She knows how to maybe she knows when she maybe needs to go to pieces and when she needs to keep it together. So she's sort of able to deal kind of with this fantastical notion that this beast has bitten her and now she can do amazing things. But what she needs to do is to help him uh, well, at first get back home and then help get her friends back from wherever his home is. So yeah, I like that idea. I wasn't and it wasn't so much that, like, I think when Zephyr bit her that he imbued her with, certain magical abilities, because he is a magical creature.
Right.
But they don't do magic themselves, but they're just innately magical beings. But I also think that when he bit her, I think he got a little bit Moira'd versus him just being just maintaining all of his dragon status quo. I think you see a little bit of their personalities reflected in each other a little bit. So it's interesting to kind of write that dynamic, and so yeah, it's interesting to see how it evolves over time.
Understand. And if I remember correctly, and forgive me if this was second nature of the Dragoneer, but there was a love interest where, and I thought it was the twins that the main character was attracted to. So
Right.
is this Dragoneer, and what ended up, is she still trying to figure things out with that, or what's going on there?
Right. So yeah, by the time we hit the second book, her and Ansel, who has been her friend, have kind of parted ways, and she is seeing Aaron. I mean, as in they're friendly. I don't know if we want to put a label on things, Eric. I don't want to say they're boyfriend, girlfriend, but like, she'd probably be okay with that. No, I think she's trying to figure it out. I think she's happy. I think she's happy that Aaron is talking to her, and she's happy to reconnect with him and see where things go. But at the same time, she's sort of grieving that lost friendship with Ansel. So and it's, to add to the fact that they're both twins, it just adds another layer of difficulty to things. So but as we go forward in the Dragoneer and the Pretender, we actually discover that something might have happened that would cause Aaron to show an interest in Moira that we might not have been expecting. So there's that to look forward to.
All right, nice. So, and then here's another question: is Moira's 15 years old?
Right.
She's not old enough to drive, but she's old enough to know right from wrong and all the things that she's doing.
Right.
Was there a specific reason that you chose 15 where you couldn't have the cars involved? You couldn't have, there's a lot more limitations on things she could do, where even as a 16-year-old, she would have a couple more, I guess, options in what she can and can't do. Is there a reason you said, 15's that age where this story needs to take place?
Yeah, driving was considered, because Moira doesn't drive, but Ansel and Aaron do. So that was it. It was an age where I felt like she wanted freedoms, and so she took them any way she could, going, leaving the house, going for walks. She's basically on her own to get to and from school any way she can, but limited in the way that, no, she doesn't have access to a motor vehicle, and she doesn't have a driver's license either. So
right.
Which is always an interesting thing we have to get around. Always an interesting element to work around in a story, because as I write the third one, I was like, well, she's got to get there. How is she going to get there? So it's like, because she don't drive. So so that question has come up, not only in the not so much in the second one, but definitely in the third book that I'm writing. It's reared its head. So yeah.
All right. So I mean, what else can you tell us between the Dragoneer and the Dragoneer and the Pretender that would actually, if somebody's not already a fan of you, would make them say, I need to pick up this book, this series?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. So I will say that my publisher has called The Dragoneer and The Pretender a standalone sequel. So he would say you probably don't necessarily need to read the first one to understand what's going on in the second book. You could just pick it up and find and get sucked into the story. But I would say if you're interested, you could check out The Dragoneer and see how it all kicked off and see how it started. Yeah, I'm excited to share their books with everybody. They take a look at what Mori's character and what somebody would do in that situation. So as fantastical as it seems, but yeah, anybody I think who's a fan of dragons, like I said, the first one is a little bit How to Train Your Dragoneer in this case, but by the second one, it's have dragon will travel. So she's got a mission, and she's got to get her friends back in the second one, and she's going to do that in any way she can. So yeah, and then she's going to go up against trolls. She's going to go up against imps. She's an army of imps. She's going to go up against an evil magician, and on top of all that, she's got to deal with politics. So it's a lot.
Who wants to deal with politics?
Exactly. It's like all of these are bad, and then they also have politics. So yeah.
So what other creatures besides the trolls, the goblins, and imps, and dragons, obviously, are being able to be discovered in this other world?
Well, actually, she does along the way saves the life of a half fae, so a halfling. She saves his life. His name is Urion, and he ends up traveling with them. So she does come to his aid, and sort of in response to that, he feels that he needs to repay that debt. So he thinks that he should travel with them for some time. So yeah. So we also have a little bit of introduction to fae, or the halfling, and I should say imps in this case are also the products of fae and humans. So just to put that out there as well. But Urion is a halfling, so his mother was fae. So that's how he looks more human than an imp would. So that's how they end up traveling together.
Well, that sounds interesting. So now, obviously, I imagine you have plenty to do for today, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm very happy I got to speak with you about your third book coming out, the second in the Dragoneer series. Where, other than authorblurb.com, where I have all your information, where do you think people should best find you if they want to find your books, contact you, ask you questions, or what so have you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, of course, everything is available at the giant umbrella of things that is Amazon. So we know that things can be found there. But wherever fine books are sold, I guess is what they used to say, right? Right? I haven't heard that in forever. Wherever fine books are sold. So yeah, you can find them. You can go to your local bookstore and request it there. I'm sure they would be happy to order it for you. But yes, ebooks are probably going to be relegated to that Amazon world. But you can find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere really. Also online, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I have since we last spoke, I started an author page, so author Amber Boudreau page, all those handles are at an Amber author. So you can find me anywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I do have a website with an email address. People can drop me questions or lines. I'm always happy to connect with readers. Mostly because I want to find out what they're reading, because I'm always looking for something good.
I understand. Well, that sounds perfect. So sounds like if somebody's having problems finding you, it's their own fault, because you sound like you're out there enough.
I try.
And if you're listening to this show, obviously you have all the links in the show notes or at your profile on authorblurb.com. Yeah. So again, I do appreciate you being here. We're going to end the conversation for everybody else, but as before, just hold on and we'll talk a little bit more.
Sure. Sounds great. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.